Imagine getting on an airplane. You just sat down and buckled your seatbelt. They've just closed the door, and the pilot gets on and says, "Folks, thanks for flying on our airline. We wanted to let you know that this is an older model. It's not equipped with a GPS, so we're going to have to fly by dead reckoning. And because the computer's outdated, we've calculated it. We have about a 90% chance that our fuel will get us to the destination." You think you'd stay on that plane? Well, don't make this scenario the story of your retirement. Today, we're going to talk about the 6 key aspects of a successful retirement plan.
Welcome to the Ask Brad Show. Be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. And now, the host of the Ask Brad Show, here's Brad Williams.
Welcome to the Ask Brad Show. Hope you had a great week. Today, as I mentioned in the intro, a little dramatic, but hopefully it got your attention. We're going to talk about the 6 key aspects to a successful retirement plan. Now, I'm going to cover these 6 key aspects in a general sense, but they're also going to be targeted over the next few months for an individual show for each one of them. So as you get a grasp of these 6 key aspects, now, mind you, this doesn't cover everything, but these are the main aspects of a successful retirement plan. Let's start with number 1, and that's Social Security planning. You know, that's probably a foundational aspect to most people's retirement plan that are 55 and older. I know some people who are younger than that probably have some misgivings. That's a topic for another show about the efficacy of Social Security. But I'm 61 and I feel pretty comfortable. Now, there'll be few changes for me, at least for the near future. And that's how most people are, especially in their 60s. But that is that one thing that drives a lot of activity. You know, when should I retire? Well, I'll be at least 62, or I'll be at full retirement age, whatever that is, 65, 66, 67, depending on what year you were born. Again, that's one of those first decisions people make. And I know I've been in this business for over 30 years. And in the early days, when I'd be sitting down with a couple and planning out strategy as far as when they should retire, one of the key questions we would always get asked, or I'd get asked, and I'm sure other financial advisors are the same, is, when should I take Social Security? Well, we really didn't have efficient tools back then to make educated decisions. And a lot of times it was just a fact of, do you live long? Does your family live long? And if that answer was yes, well, then you might want to wait and max it out. And if the answer was no, we all die in our mid-70s or something like that, then taking it early may make sense. And that's about as scientific as it got. Well, today there's several very efficient planning tools. I use Social Security timing for my software that will print a report and show you all the options. And there are many. And so having the right data to make that initial decision on when is best to take Social Security is really important. And you got several key aspects of timing your Social Security, and that is when you hit 62, of course, you can take it. That's the earliest you can take it. When you hit your FRA, which is your full retirement age, that's when you max out your benefit as far as for your spouse. And what I mean by that is that if you wait till after full retirement, all the way up to age 70, you get an 8% deferred retirement credit by waiting after full retirement age. So, for example, if you're 65 and because of your age you qualify for Social Security this year at full benefit, you'll get an 8% growth in that payment, that monthly payment. Each year you wait until you're age 70, and then obviously at age 70 you don't want to wait any longer because there's no benefit to it. You're leaving money on the table. This is one of those key aspects that are very important to know the numbers. Now, some people have to take it because they have income gaps. Some people can wait. The key is don't guess. Don't just throw a dart at a dartboard, and guess. And don't leave money on the table, because some of the different options can mean the difference between $20,000, $50,000, $60,000, even more over your lifetime to make the right decision. So the number one aspect is Social Security. There's a great book about your money that was written by a good friend of mine, Dave Scranton, and it's called Return on Principle, 7 Core Values to Help Protect Your Money in Good Times and Bad. And I'm going to offer that book this week. That's my weekly giveaway for the first 3 callers at 844-343-6048. It's like a $25 value on Amazon, folks, but it's at 844-343-6048. It is a great, well-written book by a very, very smart guy. In fact, he's got a television show on Newsmax called The Income Generation. In fact, I've been on it a couple of times. But his name is David J. Scranton, and I'd like to provide that book to the first 3 callers.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, our goal is to develop enduring, long-term personal relationships with our clients, knowing that you have placed your trust in our expertise and dedication. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. You know, Americans are notorious for overspending when the holiday season rolls around, and while that may be good for the economy, in the short term, it often ends up being bad for household budgets. Overindulging a bit on spending during the holiday season doesn't need to create hardships as long as you know your broader financial situation is in good shape. That's why we've created a holiday gift for you. It's our year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. Key items on this financial checklist include taxes, charitable donations, estate planning, health insurance, your risk assessment, goals, and so much more. It's our holiday gift to you, your very own year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. So call now, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, welcome back. And in our first segment, we talked about we're going to cover the 6 key aspects to a successful retirement plan. And we covered Social Security in one. And the next is income. And these kind of dovetail because, as I mentioned, Social Security is a key foundational planning aspect. But where are you getting your income is going to drive some of your Social Security decisions as well. Are you getting a pension? Are you a federal employee? Are you military? Do you have a corporate pension? And frankly, those are shrinking. There aren't many people covered under corporate pensions anymore. And even the ones that are there, a lot of them have quit contributing. They've just kind of frozen your benefit where it was at the date they decided not to do that anymore. And the reason being is with low interest rate environment we're in, that puts a tremendous amount of financial liability on the company in the aspects of managing it, getting the adequate returns to make sure it's fully funded. And when they talk about fully funded pension, it means that if they've got $1 of projected benefits, they've got $1 of assets to cover that or more. You may have heard the term overfunded pension. That means they've got more than $1 for every dollar of liability. The problem with a lot of pensions is that they're way underfunded. And especially some of these municipalities, the state of Illinois is in dire shape when it comes to their pensions. They've just kept voting more and more benefits without putting adequate money into the plan itself. But making the right choice on pensions is really important. Now, sometimes you'll get the option of having a spousal benefit where you can reduce your benefit to make sure that if something happens to you, your spouse continues to get that benefit for their life. That can be 50%, 25%. It really varies. That's really not a topic for this show, but making the right choice there is important, and taking a look at things like the health of you and your spouse. Is it pretty well assured you're going to outlive your spouse short of a of an accident, then that factors into what choices you make there. In some cases, it might make sense to take the higher pension and just guarantee one life. And then if you got adequate insurance or it makes sense to have insurance to cover that, then you basically cover your own pension. And that's a case by case basis. And it really depends on what factors the pension's using to drive their benefit. That's really a calculation that needs to be made at that time. And then looking at some planning strategies, like would it make sense in the early years of your retirement to wait on Social Security and let it grow till you hit age 70 and take distributions for a short period of time out of your retirement accounts and have them fund you until your Social Security maxes out and then turn that on. And for some people, that's a very viable and recommended strategy. But again, that's a case by case basis, and it requires sitting down and doing the requisite calculations. Factored in things like your required minimum distributions, which when you hit 70 and a half, have to come out of a retirement account, an IRA specifically, and a 401k if you've already retired. The only exception to taking an RMD at 70 and a half is if you're still working, but that only applies to the 401k that you're currently funding. If you've got other 401ks from previous jobs, you're going to have to take RMDs from those. Again, RMDs and IRAs, that's a topic for another show. I'm just trying to cover the basics. You may have rental income or dividend income. In fact, it's recommended that you set your retirement accounts up in many cases to fund your RMDs through dividends, because then you're not having to sell shares and eat into your principal to fund those RMDs. So, when we break that down, it's setting the right strategy, looking at the whole picture and determining how best income should be drawn. What accounts first? I often use a bucket approach, a now bucket, a later bucket, and a maybe bucket. That's one strategy, but there's many. The key is that you have sat down and developed the strategies on paper and know the scenarios and know the options are available for each. There's a great book about your money that was written by a good friend of mine, Dave Scranton, and it's called Return on Principle, 7 Core Values to Help Protect Your Money in Good Times and Bad. And I'm going to offer that book this week. That's my weekly giveaway for the first 3 callers at 844-343-6048, 844-343-6048. It is a great, well-written book by a very, very smart guy. But his name is David J. Scranton, and I'd like to provide that book to the first 3 callers.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we believe in innovative thinking, and we're not afraid to challenge conventional methods in our approach to managing, investing, and preserving wealth. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investing in the stock market these days is like riding a roller coaster. Leaving a place of safety, get on the coaster, hear the clickety-clack as you experience anticipation climbing to the top of the hill, followed by sheer panic as you plummet back to the earth, hoping you stay on track. You might be brave enough to repeat the process several times, going up and down, but never achieving higher highs and accomplishing nothing but anticipation followed by fear. The stock market has been doing this same ride of volatility with no real growth. Proper education, though, can help you find a better way to grow your money during these times.
Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, welcome back. And when it comes to income, there's taxable, there's tax deferred, and there's tax free. And one thing that's often neglected by planners, by investment advisors, by people in general, is building up a certain amount of each one for certain purposes, because There are certain years you may want to take out of this one. Some of the years you want to take out of that one. By having a choice and a blend of taxable, tax-deferred, or tax-free income, it gives you some leverage and some choices. Just a really important thing to have in that retirement plan structure. And if you have any questions about that and would like to talk and ask questions about what that means to have a different tax structure for income, just give me a call, 844-343-6048. I'll be happy to spend some time on the phone with you. It's 844-343-6048. And we can talk about that. Now let's go into our third key aspect, and that is taxes. And I mentioned that in the income range, but that's where that multiple bucket comes into play when you're talking about tax planning for income. You may have reasons why you want to defer certain things, that it makes more sense to take out of a taxable bucket this year because you've had a lower income from other areas. And then having some tax-free income may be important in those years that you have, some windfalls, things like that. The key about taxes is that you want to plan that out strategically, tactically. One thing I give out to my clients is a tax cheat sheet. And I'd be happy to email you one, no cost, no obligation, 844-343-6048. Just ask for the tax cheat sheet. And we got it in digital form, and we actually have a hard copy. We'll send you either one. Again, no cost, no obligation. It lays out all the taxes just that you could just about deal with. And it also has Social Security issues, Medicare premiums, your RMDs. But these are the type of things when you're doing planning for taxes in retirement that you need to know. And most people don't know that your income affects your Medicare premiums the next year. I've had people come in when we first started working together say, hey, last year my Medicare premium went up. Why? And I had to explain it to them. So I think when it comes to all the aspects of retirement planning is don't guess. Don't just wade into retirement. You need to have a written, dynamic plan and what I call a financial GPS. If you remember when I opened the show, I mentioned that plane didn't have a GPS. Well, and I've said this on other shows, a GPS tells you how to get back on course. Most people don't realize when you are flying on an airline that plane is off course most of the time. But because the GPS catches those subtle changes that come from turbulence and headwinds and temperature gradients and weather and things like this, similar aspects to what happened to you when you're in retire. The economic climate doesn't stay the same all the time. That GPS makes those subtle changes before they become big changes. And so that nose gets brought back onto course and the plane continues on to its destination. So that's why having a plan, and what I do with my clients, we sit down, have a written plan that includes all this. And it's a plan that is like a GPS in that it is not just a document that sits there and gathers dust on a shelf. It's something you use, a foundational plan that gets altered on a regular basis as economic changes, financial changes, family changes, targets move. So you need to be able to adjust your sights on them. Now let's get into the fourth aspect of a successful retirement plan, and that's medical costs. Because of all the costs you're going to incur in retirement, medical costs, you can read article after article. And I'm not talking about long-term care, nursing home type issues. I'm talking about medical costs, operations, medications, all these things. And so as you're getting close to retirement, you need to be asking questions of your HR people at your company. Do they have a way for you to continue your medical insurance in retirement? Some still do. A lot of them are getting away from that. Some companies even allow you to stay on and use a supplement that they've got negotiated with their carrier. That brings up another topic, which is you need some kind of supplemental insurance to match your Part A and Part B Medicare. and you can use a Medicare Advantage or you can use your typical Medicare supplement. And, there's valid reasons to use either one of them. Again, that's probably a show in and of itself is which one you should choose. But looking into those aspects prior to retirement, one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is they may be a month from retirement. They're hearing this show and they're like, oh my God, I never realized how many decisions I had to make. And all they're doing is counting down the days till they get to walk out of the office. And they really don't think about what's waiting for them once they retire if they had made plans in advance. So it's best that, 5 or 10 years before retirement, you really start honing in on some of these things so that the actual date of retirement, you're already set up. You've already got a plan. It's just sticking with the plan and adjusting the plan as need be. So, medical costs are going to be a huge part of retirement. Now, part of that is, of course, long-term care. Now, some have long-term care insurance, some don't. There's actually more ways than traditional long-term care insurance to deal with the chronic illness situation that causes so many people financial ruin. And I think what's important about that, though, is that whether you're using your own assets and pledging, a certain part of them to cover any of those costs, whether you're partially or fully insuring it with traditional long-term care insurance, or whether you're using one of the new hybrid plans that maybe even have an annuity base or a life insurance base. What's important is that you've reviewed all those options and you've determined which one makes the most sense for you. And for several years, this was years before I opened up my own office and hung my own shingle, that's all I did was long-term care planning for clients. And there are so many aspects of that you just really can't do justice if it's just a once in a while thing you deal with long-term care insurance. That's too important a thing to, it's the same reason you wouldn't go to a divorce attorney to do a trust. I mean, he may be good at it, but for the most part, you'd want to use them in their specialty. Knowing these different long-term care options is real important. There's a lot of good people that know them, and then a lot of people that just kind of dabble at them. So, just make sure you're dealing with someone who really understands them. If that's one of those key things in retirement that you want to talk about, just give me a call, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048, and would be more than willing to have a phone conversation to talk to you about that. I think every one of these planning aspects is really important. Any one of them can create havoc in a retirement. So start addressing those in advance. The 6 key aspects to a successful retirement plan. We got 2 more to go. And number 5 is risk. And when I talk about risk, I'm talking about market risk. I'm talking about interest rate risk, and I'm talking about sequence of return risk. Now, that's going to be a topic of another show. I've already done a show on that. But when I talk about market risk, I'm talking about the risk of loss in the market. Now, markets trend up over time. It's the best inflation hedge. The problem most people don't think about is that as they get older, they need to be reducing their risk. And there's several ways to do that. There is no one hard and fast way to do that. And there are many tools out there to help you do that. But it's something that should be looked at. How much of that hard-earned money do you feel comfortable having at risk? Interest rate risk is another, because as interest rates rise, it brings a whole new set of opportunities and problems. I'll give you a quick one. Bond funds have been used by many people. You hear that 70-30, 60-40 stock bond portfolio, and especially in 401ks, bond funds are widely used for that bond aspect of it. Well, one of the things that's coming in the future as we see interest rates rise is that bond funds are going to present a lot of problems, because one of the big areas of returns that bond funds have been in an interest rate environment that causes interest rates to drop is that it causes bonds to appreciate. You buy a 6% bond and interest rates go to 3%. Well, people will pay you a premium for that. And as interest rates, if you bought a bond at 3% and interest rates have gone to 6%, well, nobody wants your bond because they can go get a 6% bond. Now, the problem in mutual funds is you don't own the bond. So you don't have the two biggest guarantees an individual bond has, and that's a guaranteed return and return of your money at maturation. So then you have sequence of returns risk, which is, if you're having bad years in the early times of retirement, it could wreak havoc in your income plan later on. So it's when the drops happen that's real important. And then the sixth and final is, as you can see, there are many layers to a successful retirement plan. And you've got to address each one. And it pays to work with someone who looks at all these aspects on a regular basis. And so that's where I come in and say, do you have a financial GPS? Is your plan your financial GPS? Well, if you don't have one, give me a call. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Now, I want to thank you for listening again. I lately been getting a lot of great comments from listeners. If there's topics you want to hear, let me know. You can email me at brad@askbradwilliams.com if you don't want to call in. That's brad@askbradwilliams.com. And you can visit our website, askbradshow.com, and listen to previous shows, and it'll keep you up to date on shows coming.
So, how's this latest stock market roller coaster ride treating you? You've worked too long and too hard, scrimping and saving for retirement to have it exposed to this market volatility or gobbled up by some retirement spend-down scheme. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, hoping for different results. For your free, no obligation, no more volatility information kit, be one of our first 10 listeners to call 844-343-6048 or visit us online at askbradshow.com. It's time to get off the roller coaster and get serious about how you're planning for retirement using tools and strategies designed to generate steady, predictable income so you may have the retirement you've worked so long and so hard for. For your free, no obligation, no more volatility information kit, be one of our first 10 listeners to call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Or visit us online at askbradshow.com. That's askbradshow.com.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Brad Williams. Are you one of the 7% that have declared financial independence? A lot is made on the 1%. But what's important to most people is being in that 7%. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the National Bureau of Labor Statistics says that out of 100 people born by age 65, 29 are dead and 71 are alive. Of the 71 still living, they're broken down into the following categories. 52 are directly dependent on the government. 14 are still working and always will be because they don't have family. They don't have support. 3 are financially independent. That means they don't need any support from anyone. Their wealth continues to grow as they receive a comfortable income off their assets. 2 are wealthy. And wealthy is defined as a net worth over $5 million. So think about that. 5 people out of 71 were financially successful. That's 7%. That means that 93% were not financially successful. Now, why was that? Well, maybe their circumstances, maybe they didn't have the right education or the right training, maybe they didn't have any help. Any number of things could cause that. But the downside to that is in this great country with so many opportunities that so few actually rise to the top and get to take advantage of it. A lot of people fall back and say, well, a lot of those rich, that's that 1% that, they just inherited it. There's a misnomer about that. The studies I've read of those big wealthy power families, that wealth typically only lasts about 3 generations. Think about it. The first generation builds it. The second generation manages it. And in too many cases, the third generation blows it because they've never been trained to have the work ethic that the original generation had that built it. And I know many of you out there are probably scratching your heads and going, boy, that describes my kids. You know, here I have worked all my life and I've built this stuff up and I'm constantly giving them money. They can't hold a job. I hear that a lot from clients, not from everybody, not from the majority of my clients, but I hear it from enough to where, you know, I'm used to hearing it. But we look at what does that entail? What does it mean to be financially independent? Well, the first thing that is important along that way to achieve that goal is to have a written plan. I mean, of all things, to have a written plan of how you're going to do it and what you're going to do. And in that plan, you ought to have things like income strategies, taking a look at assets, savings, and investments. What are your liabilities? You know, what are your income needs? What extra desires do you have? I have some clients that when we build their financial plan, we actually build in a budget for vacations. And some of them take some pretty elaborate vacations, but they build that in there. And then what's important to some, but not important to others, is legacy. I know some of those people have that bumper sticker that says, I'm spending my children's inheritance. And quite frankly, some people come in here and tell me just that. Hey, I'm not interested in concerned about leaving a bunch of money to my kids, whether they're successful, not successful, whatever. They just, if it's there, they can have it. I even have had people come in here. In fact, just one this week that specifically told me that they weren't going to leave any money to their kids at all. It was going to charities. So everybody's different. I mean, I personally want to leave something to my kids that I don't use, but you know, that's a personal preference, but it should be in your plan. So getting right down to the nuts and bolts, you've got to have a written plan. Now, a lot of people would say, wow, how do I do that? You know, do I just write it down on paper, create a spreadsheet? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. I personally use a financial planning software for my clients that really helps us do all that. But, you know, there are many ways to go. So looking at a plan is very important. And I think what we're going to talk about when we come back from our break is the income sources. Because, hey, if you don't have income, you don't have anything. So be ready for that when we get back from break.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we understand the struggles that families and business owners face today. We want to help you develop, implement, and monitor a strategy that's designed to address your personal objectives and individual situation. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. A message from Brad Williams Financial Services, LLC, right here in Huntsville.
Is your financial advisor performance-driven or purpose-driven? What I mean is, when you meet with them, is it all about returns and numbers, or is it about you, your family, and your quality of life? Do they know your goals, your aspirations, and the desires you have that you hope your money can achieve? Did they even ask? Is your financial advisor a partner in your retirement or just someone who sends you reports? If you're looking for an advisor to be more of a partner for you and your spouse in retirement, call Brad Williams Financial Services at 844-343-6048. Call today and schedule a free 1-hour, no obligation consultation to discuss your goals and aspirations and see if we're a good fit. That's 844-343-6048.
Taxes, taxes, taxes. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep, especially in retirement, especially with a new tax law. Going forward, what will this mean for you and your taxes? Brad Williams has created a tax cheat sheet. It's a 2-page reference guide on the new tax bill and how it may affect you. For your free tax cheat sheet, give Brad a call at 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Or visit AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
Okay, Now, we talked about having a written plan before we went to break, and that plan includes, of course, your assets, savings, liabilities, income sources, what your income needs are, desires, legacy. But let's start with income, because it's key to have the right amount of income or it's not going to work. Now, probably the primary source for a lot of people is Social Security. At least that's the building block that I've seen where a lot of people begin their planning from Social Security, and that's not a bad place to start. Some key factors, and I've done some shows on Social Security. There's over 500 ways to claim Social Security. There's a lot of financial advisors that doing seminars, and I've done plenty of workshops on Social Security. Been in a group that's what we focused on as a training item. And there really is some good stuff to get out of working with someone who understands Social Security more than just a cursory glance. But some of the keys there is, of course, you got to work 35 years. And, it's calculated based on your salary during that period. It's best to wait until full retirement age, and that varies. Of course, that changed a few years ago, and they're pushing that retirement age out. The later you wait, the more you get. In fact, it's better to just go ahead and wait till 70, because then you get your maximum amount. You should never go past 70 to claim Social Security, because you're leaving money on the table. That's your money. You put into that. What I always suggest people do is get on socialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov. From a security standpoint, go ahead and set up an account there. It's not that hard to do. And get yourself a password, have it set up where it texts you when you're signing on. That way it helps prevent identity theft, because, folks, that is a big identity theft issue these days, is with Social Security and your taxes. So remember that. Claim spousal benefits. There are several different ways, and I'm not going to get into that in this show, but just understand they're there to claim spousal benefits, to maximize what you're going to get. Oftentimes when I go through the report with folks and they look at what they could have gotten or what they can get if they plan properly, it's amazing. It can be tens, 50, even $100,000 difference over lifetimes by claiming the right strategies. So remember that. When you take early retirement, remember that you're going to get some penalties if you continue to work, or you say you retire and get another part-time job or something and you claim Social Security until you hit that full retirement age, that you're going to get penalized on that income. So make sure you understand that. There's some claiming strategies where you can get it twice. And again, I'm not going to get into that here. That's something we can talk about if you have questions on that. Plan ahead for taxes. Social Security is treated differently from a taxation standpoint than your other income sources. With things, there's provisional income they calculate based on what your total income is. But remember, Social Security is not just, hey, call Social Security and go on. It's about making sure you make the right strategy. Some other key areas are pensions. You're going to have to make some decisions if you get a pension for survivor benefits, which is a way for you to leave something for your spouse. That's some of the key things to take into account there are the health differences between you and your spouse. Because if your health is a lot better than your spouse, you may want to look at some other ways to do that to make sure you maximize your pension. But if you're not sure, then it's best to take a look at what options your company is offering you to guarantee them a certain income for as long as they're alive as well. So that's a strategy that needs to be put in place, and you need to look at the different options. Oftentimes, the options that you're offered through your employer are the best way to go. I know some advisors will talk about the pension maximization strategy and things like that. Yeah, that can work in some cases, but you just got to crunch the numbers, because the way I always look at it is the numbers don't lie. If you're honest about putting the numbers out there, they'll tell you the direction you need to go. And so what happens is you take a look at your liabilities. And what I mean by liabilities is things like housing expense. You're going to live in your current home. You're going to downsize. What I'm finding oftentimes is people may be downsizing in size, but they may be moving into a house that's just as expensive or even more expensive, depending on the amenities and how it's structured. How are you going to pay for medical insurance, your Medicare supplements, things like that? Do you have any dependents? Any special needs children you're going to have to take into account? I mentioned before about entertainment and travel expenses. These things need to be factored in there. A big issue, I know everybody hates to talk about it. And think about this, folks. Let me throw another historical tidbit in there. We threw off the yoke of a crown, and what I mean by that is King George, and they were charging us really less than about 5% total taxes. But yet, think about all the money we send to Washington and Montgomery every year. It probably is 50% or more in some places. Automobile-related costs. What I find a lot of times is people want to buy a nicer car that's going to last longer, take good care of it. Tithing and contributions for charities, things like that. Food expenses, clothing, whatever your needs are. The liabilities vary by couple and by individual, but always remember that. And, it's best to have your debts paid off before you retire if you can. If not, have a solid written plan on how you're going to do that. So again, going back, you got income sources and you got your liabilities and expenses. So you want to make sure those balance out and that you got a surplus. The next step is if you have a gap, where's it going to come from? Because some people actually do have a gap. Actually, if you're a federal retiree and you got a great pension, maybe your spouse is too, then you may not have a gap. But most people end up having some gap. And that's when you look at, okay, where's the money going to come from? From retirement plans, from savings and investment, from rental properties, this type of thing. So it's good to have that in the written plan is where that gap's going to come from. Because what's really critical if you've got a gap and you're using that is making sure that your investment portfolio is allocated properly. Because if it's not, you could find your gap getting bigger because your accounts are getting smaller. We have been through, in the last 8 years, a pretty hefty rise in the stock market. Now, I've covered on many shows many reasons for that. Even with a flat economy, less than 3% GDP over the last 8 years up until the last year or so, we had a rise in the stock market. And that was due to low interest rates and all the money was flooding out of the banks and into the market. Well, as interest rates are rising now, you need to consider what implications that's going to have on your portfolio. Because, folks, it will. A lot of people think, well, I've got my bond allocation in my mutual funds. Okay. Well, let me share something with you. The last 20 or so years, the good portion of that bond fund return was capital appreciation. It was not dividend or income earned from the bonds. And so you had interest rates that were dropping. And when you own a bond, if interest rates rise, your bond's worth less. If interest rates drop, your bond's worth more. Because obviously if I have a 5% bond and interest rates go to 3%, there are people who are willing to pay me a premium for my bond because it's generating more interest than they could get in the market. Now, we're at the bottom of that yield. We're going up the curve now. So those bonds in that portfolio of that bond fund are going to decline in value because if they're paying 3.25% and the prevailing corporate rate is 5 or 5.5, then that means that the value of that bond is going to decline. But it's going to cause the net asset value or the value of that bond fund to decline as well. Because it's a asset in the fund and it's reflected in the net asset value of that bond fund. So remember, if you're thinking about, okay, I've got my bond fund strategy in the event that interest rates rise too precipitously, well, you might want to think about that. That may be something to look into, folks, because if that's your emergency valve, that's one worth reviewing. Another thing is your allocations. How aggressive are you in the market? It's interesting how generations look at that. And we're going to talk about that when we get back from break, is how people invest and what their allocation should be at a certain age.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, our goal is to develop enduring, long-term personal relationships with our clients, knowing that you have placed your trust in our expertise and dedication. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Have you missed any of today's show? Would you like to listen to past shows? We've got you covered 24/7. Visit AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
This is Brad Williams, and I have been privileged to have been an instructor over the last 12 years or so at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. They have some great course offerings. I'm currently teaching a course that I've written and taught for many years, Changing Face of Retirement in the 21st Century. But that's not all of the courses there. You can learn languages. You can learn hobbies, travel. There are so many things that you can get out of these courses they offer at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. So check it out today and come keep your brain working.
For more information on the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, call 256-824-6183. That's 256-824-6183. Or email olli.info@uah.edu. The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Come keep your brain working. You know, Americans are notorious for overspending when the holiday season rolls around, and while that may be good for the economy, in the short term, it often ends up being bad for household budgets. Overindulging a bit on spending during the holiday season doesn't need to create hardships as long as you know your broader financial situation is in good shape. That's why we've created a holiday gift for you. It's our year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. Key items on this financial checklist include taxes, charitable donations, estate planning, health insurance, your risk assessment, goals, and so much more. It's our holiday gift to you, your very own year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. So call now, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, before we go on to break, I mentioned about allocations in your portfolio. We talked about income sources and what your expenses are going to be. If you have a gap, how to fix that. If you don't, that's great. Just make sure you preserve it. But if you have a gap between what your guaranteed income sources are and what your expenses are projected to be in retirement, then you're going to have to use your savings and investment, and having it allocated properly is going to be very important. Of course, I addressed the bond issue. The stock market's been really bumpy. If you had retired in the year 2000, it would have taken you nearly to 2012 to get back to where you were without taking any income. So folks, think about it that way. If you're retired and you're heavily in the market and the market drops and you're taking money out during that time, it affects how far it comes back. Because if you're taking money out during a downturn, it's that old sequence of risk issue that I've talked about in other shows. It's good to have a plan in place to cover that, especially if you're having to take your RMDs and use them. Some people may say, well, I may not need my RMDs at that point, but I just have to take them out. Well, you can always take those shares out in kind, move them into a brokerage account, and let them grow back up if you're not having to spend them. But what I found is that's not most people. So most people fall into this first thing, which is when they get their RMDs, they're going to need them. So make sure that you're allocated properly for those RMDs, because if you're having to reverse dollar cost average, it hurts, because reverse dollar cost averaging is a very bad cancer that can destroy your portfolio. And what I mean by that is when you're investing regularly from your paycheck, and you're putting $100 a pay period in there in your 401k, for example, and you're buying a share that's $10, you bought 10 shares. If a few months later, market crashes and shares are down to 5, well, that pay period, you bought 20. So in reality, as you're in the accumulation stage, that a market drop can actually help you. The problem is when you get to the other side of that retirement mountain, as you recall on a past show, I talked about the accumulation side and the distribution side. It actually works against you. Because if you're taking $100 out and you got to cash 10 shares in, then, that's $10 a share. But if the next period, it's $5 a share, you're going to have to cash 20 in to get the same amount, which means that when it does come back, you're going to be behind the curve. So remember that. Allocation is a very important issue even before you retire, because you got to look at stock market history. That's one thing I share a lot with clients is we can't predict in the short term what the market's going to do, but there are long-term trends that are fairly predictable. So as you're getting close to retirement, it's good to remember that it's good to start looking towards more income-oriented sources than growth-oriented. Now, it's good to have growth in your portfolio, don't get me wrong. But as you're moving into retirement, looking at income-oriented investments versus growth-oriented are very important. Now, I try not to make this a product-driven show, and some people might hear that and think, they're selling an annuity or something. Well, annuities can be used for income, and they do sell some that have, income riders on. That's not what I'm talking about, because there are pluses and minuses about any of those. They all vary by the individual. The key is looking at, there's 7 or 8 different solid income-oriented investments that can be in your portfolio that are very important to look at.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we believe in innovative thinking, and we're not afraid to challenge conventional methods in our approach to managing, investing, and preserving wealth. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Thanks for listening to our show today. In retirement, you only get one chance to get it right, and we know that proper information leads to informed decisions. And that's why we hold free informational workshops in our area every month. Topics like Social Security, RMDs, the latest retirement tax strategies, IRAs, estate planning, and so much more. For dates and times of the next free workshop in your area, just pick up the phone. Give us a call today. Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Income Doctor, Brad Williams. And right now, we'd like to offer to you a free copy of the book, Return on Principle, the 7 core values on how to protect your money in good times and bad. To receive your copy of this very powerful book, Return on Principle, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Be one of the first 3 callers right now.
Okay, well, folks, I really do hope that you take some time and think about what a blessing we have in this country. What a blessing it is to be in the greatest country in the world. And we have more opportunities than anybody else in the world. And there have been so many people that have sacrificed for us. For all the faults we have a great nation, folks. We have a great nation. We ought to all be proud of it. And one of the things we ought to be proud of is whatever's wrong, we have the opportunity to fix it. We have things in place that we have a say in it, folks. And always remember that. So again, getting back to the theme, it's time to declare your financial independence. So if that's something you want to talk about, give me a call and we can talk about that. So if you want to talk about financial independence, give me a call at 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. I look forward to talking to you next week.
That's all the time we have for today. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Brad Williams Financial Services and Sound Income Strategies, LLC are not associated entities.